spending some time with Paul Gerber, winemaker at Colmant and master behind some of the finest bubbles that you'll find in the Cape. Paul, cheers. It's very nice to see you again, and I can't wait to get tucked into the wine.
Lekker, that sounds good.
So Paul, let's jump straight into it. Can you maybe just tell us all a little bit more about yourself, what got you into winemaking, and where you've produced wine thus far?
Yeah, so I was a math teacher. I love math and chemistry, and it's I think how the world makes sense to me. So yeah, I did a wine course, and one of the guys that was playing rugby with me was a winemaker at Ethos, the vet. Yeah. And I remember going to see the vet and saying to him, listen, I want to quit my job. And the vet said to me like, whoa, slow down. And he said, come and help harvest and check things out. And yeah, so my first ever harvest was at Ethos.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and it was an amazing journey. I just, anywhere from washing floors to tanks. But like, yeah, when I finished, I remember going into the headmistress's office and telling her, listen, I'm quitting my job, I'm going to go study winemaking.
That's crazy.
And probably the coup d'etat of the whole story was convincing my wife one Friday evening that I must quit my job. And she can keep working and I can study. And yeah, it's the last time I won an argument. So.
But because, your wife, Berna, she's actually involved with education as well, right?
Yes, yeah, so she's a lecturer at Stellenbosch. Yeah, and I think for both of us, we support each other's careers. We take the opportunity to give the other one the chance that we would love them to have. So yeah, it was an amazing chance for me.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, Paul, the grapes used for a production of Capitalistic or Champagne, it's generally the three being Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier. So can you tell me the wine that we're drinking this afternoon or tasting, what grapes are making up this blend, and also are the grapes sourced from the estate itself?
Yeah. So first of all, it's I lined you up a little bit that this is 100% Chardonnay.
Oh, excellent.
But
which is also recognized as
yes,
Blanc de Blanc.
As Blanc de Blanc. Yeah. And the reason that I did that was it's my complete love affair as a grape. I think it's one of the most sublime examples of bottle fermented sparkling wine comes from Chardonnay. I think the amazing examples of Coleman and Chenin Blanc but those are, for me, expressions of different ideas and philosophies, and for me, I feel what we like to do and what I enjoy about sparkling wine is coming from Chardonnay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the second part, the cornerstone to what we are doing with the Blanc de Blanc is to have it from various sites. So a little bit Robertson, Bonneville, Elgin. But always choosing farmers that we could have a long-term relationship with. We want to buy grapes from you for the next 10 years plus. So we want to work the blocks with you, understand what's happening and develop as we go with time. Okay. And then the other key is just behind you is the perpetual reserve. So since 2006, Jean-Philippe has kept some of the best base wines of the year. Okay. And we reblend a perpetual reserve each year, taking some of the wine to blend with. And then put back some of the best of that vintage. Yeah, and I think that's a cornerstone to kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's excellent. Just jumping off topic quickly, the mouthfeel of this wine, it's very pronounced. Yeah? It's got some excellent lees characteristics on the wine too. So, just out of interest, how much time on the lees was this Blanc de Blanc?
So this particular one is a minimum of 5 years.
Okay, there goes.
For us.
I'm feeling that.
And you're having the impact of reserve wine, which is about 27% in this blend. Okay. And that reserve wine is this perpetual reserve going back 15 years.
It is fantastic. Yeah. Some serious stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I just think I think also what Jean-Philippe, really important for Jean-Philippe and I is obviously the comparison is with champagne. Yeah. And but for us, what we take from champagne is characteristics like finesse, elegance, balance, sure. And we like those kind of things in our wine. So Peter Ferrer always says it, and I think it's probably one of the greatest Capitalistic quotes is, when you taste South African Capitalistic, you should taste the sun and the fruit. Yeah. Sure. And that's what we want from our wines. Sure. At Colmant, finesse, balance, elegance. Like this kind of moment that you have. Yeah. For other producers, it's big, full, ripe characteristics expression for each of us.
For sure. I'm sure as we get into this bottle, it's going to bring out his bubbly personality for sure. So, I actually wanted to ask you, when it comes to producers out there producing Capitalistic from varieties other than the traditional three, how do you feel about this? Because there are guys using Shiraz, there are guys using Chenin, which you pointed on as well. How does that make you feel?
So, you're lining me up, yeah. So it's like, no, look, as a defender of Chardonnay, it should be Chardonnay. But no, I think for another producer, it must be a reflection of who they are and what the site is. So what springs to mind is a guy like Varieties, puts here at Loeverland.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, I really personally, for me, in terms of the tightness and the leanness, and this elegance that a wine can have, Colmant is an amazing cultivar in South Africa. And I think maybe in the future, Colmant and Chenin Blanc as Capitalistic, if that's what you like. So I definitely think, I think Varieties for me the nicest example. It's a unique terroir and Prisca. I mean, it's almost in its, it is its own appellation, and with a very unique characteristic. And then I think I have Colmant, which brings something very, very unique.
That's badly from Zinkelblatt, eh?
Yes, yeah.
What a crazy story from music to wine. It's like it's as good as it gets. For as long as I've been involved in the wine industry, I've always been quite well aware of the quality associated with bubblies that you've been producing. I wanted to just quickly ask you, for your perfect kind of Capitalistic, I mean, what would that wine taste like? Can you maybe just go through what kind of flavor profile, aroma profile this wine would have to have in order to tick those boxes for Paul Gerber?
Sure. I think you need to ask one of the rockstar guys that are producing probably closer to the perfect wine. But yeah, I think for us and certainly what Jean-Philippe and I cherish about the wines we produce is consistency. We want you to be able to trust us. When you pick up a bottle this year or next year, the house style should be this kind of like thin lace work that holds the wine together. And then balance. And for me, champagne is also and Capitalistic in terms of style. If I'm looking what I like from both, it's a little bit mystique. I don't like the wine to be too pushy. So it's maybe why we don't do too much mallow. The wines that I like are generally wines with not so much mallow. But I think that's freshness. I like the freshness, the tightness. That's kind of zesty character. Sure. That acidity pushes the wine on the palate and gives it length. And I think also that acidity gives it a little bit of mystique. It brings an aroma, it brings a flavor, and then lets it carry and brings the next one. So
Well, I mean, talking about the wine again, I mean the fact that this is spent a massive 5 years on the lease, it's so fresh still. So it's drinking incredibly well.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I mean, that for us is about the tertiary development that will take place. But we also spend a lot of attention to how much time it spends on cork after degorgement, and that's really important also for us to look after.
Nice. So Paul, what is it about Capitalistic? I mean, what drew you into wanting to produce Capitalistic?
So now you see, you were talking about having a glass. No, normally I need to have a glass if I have to speak to more than two people in one room. So I think the best way for me is I love the geekiness behind it. I think because Capitalistic and Champagne are quite process-driven wines, so there's a lot of steps in the production process. Lends itself a little bit to this kind of wanting to measure a lot of things, and as I said earlier to you, numbers and things make sense to me and make sense to the world, but that's what I love about Capitalistic. But then also at the same time, when it's blending or dosage or liqueur, then there's this artistic opportunity to let go a little bit of this rigidness and see how you can put the wines together.
Absolutely. Colmant is situated in the heart of the Robertson Valley. So is the valley ideal for the production of Capitalistic, and how would you compare, say, I mean, in my opinion, one of the most prestigious, producing regions for Capitalistic would be Robertson Valley. And how would you compare the Franschhoek Valley versus the Robertson Valley when it comes to the production of Capitalistic?
Yeah, I think, and it's maybe just a little bit broad strokes. For me, there's a lot of ripeness and fullness in the fruit that comes from our Franschhoek blocks, where this kind of tightness, leanness, and elegance and length is coming a bit more from the Robertson. But even in Robertson, where we have maybe a little kind of a slightly more clay, chalky, or a vineyard that's in that kind of soil type compared to maybe the shale block in Bonnievale, even there, we have small differences, and that's why we like the different blocks to pick from, because it's different components and each bringing their own part to it, and maybe to steal the music analogy, but it's almost like you've watched an orchestra, or you put, what would that piece be without the cello or the violin or without the bass guitar in the band? So I think when you look at putting all those things together, it's the same. That you create complexity, but laced within that are these unique characteristics that make the wine different.
For sure. And then Colmant, how long has Colmant been here, and how long have they been producing Capitalistic?
So Jean-Philippe built the cellar in 2005. 2006 was their first vintage. And it's been an amazing journey. Like just when I moved here, we're talking about like all the vintages and things they did in the start and things they don't do now. And you can just see the development as a winemaker for him. And on top of that, I mean, he's this incredible businessman that runs with the utmost precision a wine business. So I think in terms of that, Coleman is that for the wine industry. This is incredible business, but also producing unique wines. And I think that's a little bit, when I first spoke to Jean-Philippe about it, that's what he set out to do in the beginning. He built the cellar just to make Capitalistic,
that's awesome.
and to make Capitalistic in this style. This is and reflective of the vineyards and the sites and the philosophy that he had.
That's great. So, in terms of doing harvest, what's the craziest thing you've experienced or had to endure during your time as a winemaker? Somewhere, maybe I'm not sure if my wife might take it down, but somewhere on social media there's a picture of me standing about ankle deep in the snow, trying to fit a pipe to a tank in Germany in early December of 2010. And I just remember, it was incredible. It was a cellar making base wine for Henkel. In that cellar we did 24 million liters that year. It was like bags of yeast, like as big as the barrel kind of thing. But incredible, just also to see how they paid attention to detail. They looked after the components and the efficiency with which the cellar ran. But it was, I learned to run quite fast with a jug of hot water, because you pour the hot water on the fitting that's now frozen to the tank to try and get it loose. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's, and we were still making bubbly. So I mean, it must be special. I know this is something I've mentioned time and time again through these chats with the winemakers, is that I did a harvest as well, it was just one, but it was still one of the most special experiences that I've ever I've ever been privileged to be part of. The connections and the bonds that you make with the people in the cellars is like unlike anything else. If I could have, I would have stayed in the cellar, but unfortunately my true calling is more in the sales direction. But we'll leave the actual production.
Equally important. We're all, I think, having a passion for what you do and paying attention to the detail of what you do are the cornerstones of what we must do in the industry.
Absolutely. So, for people who don't know, you stayed on a cottage in Stellenbosch for just over 12 years. And I remember the day when we got the opportunity to now finally move on to a cottage on a farm. We came to have a look at it, and I was like, no ways, I know the guy, that's Paul Gerber. And I couldn't believe that we were about to take over a cottage from you guys. And before you guys officially left to move out to Franschhoek, you invited my girlfriend and myself for dinner. And on that evening, we got a bit festive, and you spoiled us by opening up a bottle of 2009 Black de Blanc Grand Cru champagne. It was that Vignon Resonance. I think that's what it was called.
Okay.
But it's still to this day, I mean, I think I can still taste that wine. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. So thank you for that. But what I wanted to get to is, I mean, you've spent quite a bit of time in Champagne. So I mean, how often did you used to go and when last were you there?
Yeah, COVID's put a bit of a stick in the spokes for that, but I try to spend at least once a year in Champagne, either harvest or blending, or we have a research project that we share some ideas with and have some advice from the university there as well. So at least once a year, and almost always in a small village called Les Minimes-Sous-Gers in the Côte Blanc. And for me, like when you were telling your story about being at the harvest, it's funny. I remember going there for the first time ever, and just having this, being in awe of the sense of place, and then going there for my first harvest, and just walking in the vineyards, and it was amazing to be there. I think it's a emotional part of the journey. You have the sense of expectation. You have these grapes that you cannot wait to see what the final product's going to look like, and
the connection to that terroir must have been phenomenal.
Yeah, and maybe also, like I was saying earlier when we were chatting, just I spent one morning walking with one of the other winemakers, his dad who had retired. We took a walk in the vineyards together, and it was just about understanding how he thinks, and it wasn't about the numbers, it wasn't it wasn't about how much the acid was, it was just about how they made decisions and what they thought, and how they thought the decisions through.
And is this something like, I mean, I don't think the folks out there really realize how spoiled we all are in terms of being able to go to a winery and do a wine tasting and get to spend the day on the estates. I mean, is that something that they practiced in Champagne? I mean, are you able to go to a Champagne house and just taste?
Yeah, I think it's a bit more tricky. They're getting there, but it's probably not. It's not as commercial, not in a bad way, like trying to push as many people through a tasting room. But I just think the smaller producers are probably not quite what you have in South Africa.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it is changing, and they're more open to it. I think they realize also that it's not just good enough to say, it's a rural place. Yeah. But then also, I think you have the challenge there where you have some producers where their entire stock of wine is sold on allocation.
Yeah, for sure.
When you visit, you can't taste. You can walk in the cellar and look at the pretty pipes and the
taste of disappointment.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I think there's that kind of challenge as well.
Sure.
It's difficult, but I think it is changing.
Yeah, that's good. That's good news. And I mean, again, I know it's difficult to do it, and I know we all haven't got much time anymore, but if you really have got some time and you're able to make a stop at one of these estates just to go and taste and experience what it is that they have to offer, go and do it.
Yes.
When it comes to your production of your uniquely crafted wines, what's your ethos?
Yeah, I think essentially for Jean-Philippe and I, it's the cornerstone. We want good, honest wines. We want you to walk up to our bottle in the store, in the tasting room, pick it up and have faith in what we've provided you with. And then we're looking for precision. We're looking for excellence, elegance, and that you can feel the craftsmanship in the wine, but that the wine also has a sense of place. Yeah. So I think often in Champagne and Capitalistic, because it's a blended wine, the comment might always be that these wines don't. It's not like a single vineyard or something like that. And sure, I understand that argument, but I think almost to come back to the music analogy, if there's greatness in the site, then that part that it plays in the bigger whole should show itself.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of folks out there realize that the blending parts of Capitalistic and Champagne comes from the fact that there is normally a house style, and if you want consistency and if you want to kind of avoid things like vintage variation and things like that, this is where blending comes in. So it's a crucial and it's a very traditional part of the production process.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful part of the tradition, because it's as as we walk through a vineyard, and see where it is in its ripening phase, and you know what is optimal ripeness maybe. No, but this is the big thing, like optimal ripeness but optimal ripeness is somewhat more complex than just saying the sugar and acid and the phenols are in balance. It's about how you want that sugar and acid, that matrix to express itself, or allow it to express itself. Is probably a bit and so I think for us, that's what blending is about, putting those components together. And when you walk in a vineyard, you have a pretty good idea of what it's delivering and what role it plays in that bigger whole.
It's true. It's funny, out of all wines, if you have a collection of still wines, it is consistency, but if I go for a specific wine over time, I know that there will be these differences where when it comes to Capitalistic, I definitely know what I'm getting. So when there's Capitalistic producers, I know exactly what I can expect. And if anything, that actually makes me feel more confident when I walk into the shop, because I know exactly what you guys are doing. That you're striving for that excellence and the purity and also that consistency. So cheers to you and all the hard work that you're doing out there. If you had to give any advice to the folks out there who are just starting out with their journey into wine, what would it be?
Taste. Not drink. No, I mean, and this is maybe advice to myself as well. Watching this at some
The
stage.
hardest advice to take.
Is to be open to try. I think outside of your normal profile. It's you don't have to buy a case of the wine that's a little bit left field of what you normally. But I think it is important, and moving here, it's something I learned from Jean-Philippe. We both enjoy a certain style, but I think in a way we enjoy different expressions of that, also nuanced differences, and it tempers both of us to kind of stay the course in what we're trying to achieve. So, and I think it's important to try experience. There is so much out there, and there's so many great wines, and
like I think if you want to develop as a wine enthusiast, you need to step outside of the comfort zone, because I was the same. I was like, no, I'm only a cab man, I'm only going to drink cabs. But I mean, I was like, damn it, what have we been missing out on once I started exploiting or exposing my palate to the amazing wines that are being produced in South Africa right now.
Without a doubt.
And it looks like you're going to be busy, because when I was standing here earlier, I saw this big box from Great Domains pull up here. So it looks like you're gearing up for a weekend.
I have a very good friend and customer, who's also a good friend and customer of Great Domains, Carl. And Carl will often tell me like, I've got this, so I just bought this, or you got to visit him, and he goes, I got that last month, this one. So Jean-Philippe and I had a look at it a little bit and scratched in the kitty box and got a few wines from Derek and the team. But I think Great Domains is it's an incredible resource of some of the most amazing wines. But also, again, I mean, like I said to you, if it wasn't, actually in this case, it wasn't for Etienne de Blanche from saying to me about the Aligoté from the cellar in Burgundy, I wouldn't have tasted it, and I won't say he pried me away from Chardonnay, but I mean, it was it's a great experience, and we still order the wine today.
And that's how I feel about Gamay. Wow, what a champion wine. Like, if you ever come across Gamay, please do yourself a favor and go try some, because it'll blow your mind. But Paul, before I ask you the last question, do you mind if we top up a little?
Yes.
Cheers, that's cool. Thank you. You must pour yourself some in. Just like they say, you can't trust the skinny chef, but you can't trust the winemaker without wine in the glass. So Paul, the last question I have for you is that we have discussed this wine a touch, but I wanted to ask you, how do you feel this wine is drinking after all this time? Or how do you think the wine is presenting itself to us today?
I think there's nice precision there, it's freshness, the brightness. There's a nice tertiary development, so you've got almost this kind of a little roasted almond and marzipan that's coming through. But this wine is great to drink now. But going forward, I'd say in the next 3 to 5 years, it'll be wonderful development, even post 5 years. So when we're chatting about this in the tasting room, I said I think one of the things that we like at Coleman is this idea that, in fact, I said it in a tasting a year or two ago to a group of people. what we try to create at Coleman is wines that my son can serve your son or your daughter one day. And it's about this, not to leave a legacy, but it's about wines that age and wines that can tell a story. And wines maybe one day that my son serves your son, it's not so much the discussion about what happened in 2021 vintage, but more, what has happened between that and now.
Yeah, for sure. That's that whole cultural element to it, which is incredibly important. If you want to really buy into the industry, you need to buy into the culture. And I'm glad that I got to obviously have this conversation with you. I'm glad that I have the opportunity to speak to a lot of amazing winemakers, because I'm very proud to be part of this culture, and I hope to be with him for many years to come.
No, but I can say from our side, what we do is not possible without someone like you that has the passion that you do to carry it forward. So I think it's not one without the other, and what you and others in your company are doing for the wine industry is of critical importance.
Yeah, and obviously none of us would be here if it wasn't for all these passionate palates out there. So make sure to carry on supporting your favorite wineries and exposing yourself to new wine every single day, or not every single day, every single week at least. But Paul, this will bring us to the conclusion of today's tasting.
Sure.
And I'd like to thank you for your time, and thank Colmant for having me today and exposing me to an absolutely amazing Blanc de Blanc. I'd also just like to mention to everybody out there that there is no standard when it comes to your enjoyment for wine. And as everybody knows, there is a mixed case of 6.
Yes.
So if people out there make a donation towards my educational campaign, they stand a chance after the 6-week period to now get access to this amazing case that I've managed to be able to put together, through the generosity of producers out in the Western Cape. But to actually just shake things up, Paul had an absolutely amazing idea. So instead of just, filling this box with the wine that we tasted here today, we actually creating an experience for you. So Paul, do you mind just explaining what this experience will be?
Sure. So we will put a bottle of our finest Blanc de Blanc in the case.
Okay.
But what I want to extend is that with you and the person that receives the case, and maybe their partner or a friend, they come through to the cellar and they experience a liqueur, a dosage trial, to see how we finish a wine. Because, as I said, as an amateur cook, or definitely not a chef, amateur cook, salt sometimes just finishes the dish. It just kind of gives out brightness with it. And we think dosage does that, and so we want to give you that experience. You'll sit with us, you'll taste wines in different dosage, and then you can actually leave with a bottle of wine of your choice.
That's amazing. You see, so that's the experience, that you can actually come to the farm and finish off one of these amazing bottles for yourself. So you become part of this Colmant family. Obviously I'll be there, I'll have your other 5 wines with you, so we'll finish it up together. We'll have a nice little festive afternoon over here at the farm. And if you want to be part of that amazing experience, just make sure to scan this QR code or click in the link in the description. It'll take you through to all the information that you'll need to make the donation. And also these donations are going straight into my enrollment for the Diploma in Wines through WSET. So Paul, thanks again for having me here this afternoon. It was amazing to get to try some of this Blanc de Blanc. Colmant is a beautiful estate. I would highly recommend that everybody comes out and visits and exposes themselves to the amazing wines that you're producing. Thanks. And remember, be kind
and drink good wine.
Cheers.